Azure Meetup.
I'm just checking, am I broadcasting or not? Should be okay. Okay. Okay, everybody, thank you very much for coming today. Today we have an interesting topic related to bots, functions, and the new Azure Bot Service. So hopefully you find a lot of interesting things. I honestly plan, and my wish is for this year that we have a lot of presentations around serverless, around functions, around bots, around cognitive services. So it's a big topic for Microsoft, I think, for the whole IT industry. And it's very interesting, especially for application developers, because as you know, a lot of the things that we usually are spending time dealing with are taking care of the providers. And it's actually really pleasant to work with these technologies. And at the same time, we're able to enable very powerful scenarios for that. So let's start. So today we want to talk about Azure Bot Service, but actually Azure Bot Service is behind the scenes Azure Functions. And Azure Functions is something very exciting. After AWS presented Lambda, now we have like a functions on Azure. Google has their own functions. So basically, each of the biggest providers has functions or serverless technology in their stack. We made last year like a presentation on functions. Hello. But actually, the team is investing a lot in functions, and the functions becoming very powerful. If you see like what is going on with AWS, you see that functions are going everywhere. This is also our expectation to happen in Azure, basically to be able to integrate the functions with everything, to call it from different places, and basically to be everywhere, to be the glue between the services. And today we'll talk how functions actually enable us in a very easy way to build on top of Microsoft bot framework, enable like very powerful scenarios. So I want to spend just a little bit of time on functions. We will not go very deep on functions today, but you see that actually Azure Bot Service behind the scenes is actually Azure Functions with integrated bot framework inside. And Azure Functions actually started as a natural continuation of the web jobs, if you remember web jobs. So web jobs are basically the way that you can execute background processing tasks on top of app service. So maybe some of you already had experience with cloud services. Cloud services was the old way of doing that thing, especially worker roles. But with the functions become very, very easy to do the same work and to abstract a lot of the complexity. And basically, web jobs behind the scenes are like a command line executables that you can run, schedule, and target background processing. And as you can see here on this slide, a lot of the core concepts of web jobs are the same with functions. For example, we have the same triggering principles, have the same like a binding outputs. The cool part about Azure Functions that we don't have in web jobs, because web jobs in the end, it's a framework, right? It's like a SDK that has very nice integration with the core Azure services, like a storage, like a scheduler, and so on. But the cool part about Functions is that actually you have this unique offering that is called Dynamic Plan. Basically, when you create the functions under the Dynamic Plan, you don't need to take a you don't need to take care about the underlying infrastructure, but basically Microsoft will scale for you the functions depending on your scale, depending on the scale and the traffic that you have. So again, you focus on the business logic, you leave the cloud provider to take care about the scale. And of course, the serverless component, you have it only with Azure Functions. You don't have it with web jobs. So very powerful. if you don't have experience with web jobs, I advise you to go there. A lot of good tutorials, very good documentation. Basically, you don't need even to have like an environment, local environment. You just go in Azure portal, use the editor. Immediately, you start building functions in Node.js, C#, PowerShell, and many other languages. So definitely, if you haven't tried Azure Functions, this is one of the key takeaways from today's sessions. Please go and try it. It's very easy, and you can be very creative and productive in the same time using them. So I want to talk a little bit about the different offerings in Azure. So you can see here in this slide, we have a lot of services. Actually, how many? 5, right? So when I was starting like working with Azure, at that moment, we had, I think, only like a app service, like a web apps and cloud services. And for my team at that time, it wasn't clear, like in what case we need to use cloud services, in what case we need to use app service. And also, we never found a guide from Microsoft say, okay, in this case, go with app services. Now, it looks that it's getting even more complicated because we have like more offerings. But actually, if you see, you have like more flexibility. So with the functions, definitely, it's the best fit for event-driven computing. If you have like event-driven scenarios, and I advise you, like Martin Fowler recently created on his blog definition what is event-driven computing, because it's a little bit of an overloaded term these days. So please go find this article; it's very interesting. But basically, how he defines event-driven computing is that you have an event. You send this event to a system, but you don't care about the response. So this is an interesting idea, because if you think like the natural thinking about seeing how easy it is to work with Azure Functions is to start building your APIs with functions. But if you follow the definition of Martin Fowler, he says, okay, you don't wait for response. And you know that in the case of APIs, this is not the case for most of the time, right? So definitely functions is very interesting. I think recently, yesterday or today, the functions team announced proxies. So this is very exciting because they say now you can build APIs with functions. Something interesting that I found was Microsoft recently released service that was called like a mobile center. Mobile Center in one of their recent events. So a Mobile Center, when you go to the documentation, you can see they start to use like a term that is called like a nano service, right? Mm-hmm. So we have a microservice, which is like the well-known small service, just like a very focused functionality. But now we're talking about nano services, and nano services is basically a function. One function is one nano service. And usually when you want to build like APIs, it's not enough just to have like a one nano service or one function. You need multiple. Just imagine like most of the APIs, you need to support like several HTTP verbs, like a put, post. And most of the time, this can be different functions because you want to keep them very small. But today, with the announcement of API proxy, Azure Functions proxy, now you have this like a gateway that stays in front of your functions, and for your customer, it looks that this is the same old API, but behind the scenes you can have multiple functions, like serving each of these requests. So it's very powerful. Definitely go and check this thing. It's still in preview, but I think it's very interesting, and potentially after some time, I think we'll see more and more API going to this model, implemented with Azure Functions using API proxy. And basically taking advantage of the serverless pattern. So serverless is great because it's easy to start, but also it's very cost effective. So if you run API app or web app, you pay for the virtual machine, even though it's used or not used. But for functions, it's very cool because you just pay for the executions for this function. So I was making an experiment in one of my subscriptions. I created like a web app, and I created a function. So for the function, because everything was tested, I spent like under 100 yen for 1 month. But for the web app, because of the pricing tier, I spent like 5,000 yen, even though it was just for testing and doing nothing. So I think we'll see like more and more people shifting to the functions because of the cost effectiveness as well as for the ease of use. And then we have the Azure Web Jobs. This is the framework that is powering functions, and you can continue using for the background processes that are hosted on your app services. Down we have the Azure Worker role, which is very powerful service. A lot of people are confused what is going in the cloud services because we don't have a lot of updates for this service, and probably will not see so many coming, but they're very important for Microsoft because most of the services are running internally as a cloud service. So this will stay, and it's very good for scenarios when you need to access the virtual machine. You want to have this level of control because with functions, you don't have any access to the virtual machine. You cannot install anything on these virtual machines. With worker roles, this is the way to go. Docker containers, I think all of you know what is it. It's very exciting, complete change in the way that we deploy applications, very scalable. And on the bottom, we have virtual machines. So you can see Azure Functions is on the top. We have like the maximum abstraction. We have least level of control, but in the same time, very, very good for certain scenarios, especially good for the case that we'll discuss today, bot service. And then let's move to bot framework. So bot framework is the brain behind the bot service. So this is the logic, this is the SDK, these are the tooling that are so important for us that actually are giving us the chance to have this interaction with the bots. So what is it actually? There are like 5 main components. We have Bot Builder SDK, we have Bot Connector, which is maybe the most interesting service, Developer Portal, Bot Directory, and Emulator. So the picture that you see here, this is the emulator. So it's very cool. Like you can test locally. So you're sure like what is how your bot is working. We'll see it a little bit later. But I want to spend a little bit more time about the Bot Connector. Bot Connector is this cool service that Microsoft provides us that is doing most of the difficult part when we are dealing with bots in Azure. So as you can see here, it deals with the routing of the messages to the right channels. And channels, these are the different application channels that we can interact with our bots. So this can be Skype, Slack, Telegram, or other clients, Facebook Messenger, and so on. But the bot connector is the super important part of the bot framework because actually it's make it very easy for you to save state, to have like a session tracking, to have like a per user, per bot storage, SDK and API. So this is infrastructure that is managed for you by Microsoft, and you just use it as it is. It scales dynamically for you, and it allows you basically to really simplify the whole development. And this is how the experience looks like. You have you interact in a very natural way, right? With the bots. Basically, you say here, I want to have a haircut on Saturday. Then you see here example of kind of like a predefined set of values. What will be the best time for you? You pick one. It immediately understands the context for you, and then suggests to finish the booking. Now, it's very interesting. It's very natural. I think it will become more and more natural. Today, we'll not focus so much on the intelligent part, but hopefully we'll have a dedicated session. Last year, we had like a very interesting session on cognitive services and machine learning, but I want to continue this year. So please, if you have passion or if you have interest in cognitive services, we'll be very happy to have you as a host here. So let's look a little bit deeper in the major components. So in terms of SDK, currently 2 main frameworks are supported, .NET Framework and Node.js. So it's very interesting because actually the people that are behind this bot framework some of them are the people before that were working on mobile services, and they're like a very open source oriented. So I think one of the main like program managers, he's like a big Node.js fan. So you see like a Node.js everywhere. And I think it's very good for the open source community because maybe most of us are working with .NET, but actually it makes it very easy for people that are on different platforms to use Node.js. So we have .NET, we have Node.js SDKs that really abstract the object model and allow us to interact very easily with the framework. But also we have a REST API. So if you're working in a language that is not .NET or Node.js, you can create your own SDK from your own language, let's say Ruby, Python, something else, just by calling the API. Of course, it will be a little bit more difficult, not so easy, but at the same time, it's possible. And the good part is that this is one of the new projects at Microsoft, and it follows the new belief at Microsoft. Like most of the project is actually open source. Like the SDKs are open source, and I can tell you a lot of people are actually using these open source technologies to build their own solutions because the architecture is very good, the conventions are very good. So I know a few people that are actually building their own services, like integrating the open source elements and even like extending them for their own needs. So very powerful, great for Microsoft for open sourcing that. And this is the typical workflow, like how we develop the bots. First, we write the bot. After that, we want to register it. After that, we want to connect it to a channel. And again, channels, these are the typical messaging clients that we use today. But also don't forget that you can embed your bots in your website, or you can integrate them with some of the other messengers. So Skype works very well because it's, of course, Microsoft technology now, so you don't need to do any configuration for that. It's maybe the best way to start testing your bots. It's just like a few clicks away to get your bots inside Skype. And it's a very nice experience. Web chat is also very easy to integrate. We'll see a little bit later, especially on the bot directory, how easy it's actually to test the bots with the web chat. So we can potentially embed these chats on your website and give your clients the chance to interact with the bots. And then again, you have this direct line REST API that allows you to integrate with channels and messengers that are basically not supported out of the box from the platform. So, for example, here, I don't see in this list like a Viber. If you want to make integration with Viber, you need to use like a direct line REST API. But the team is committed, and it will expand the list of supported messengers. So I think with the time we will see this integration easier and easier, and need to call the direct line REST API will be decreased. And after you connect to the channel, after you validate it's working fine, then you publish you can publish your bot, and you can see it in the directory. Before actually goes to the directory, there is a review process. So if you're like a mobile developer, this is similar to how Apple, for example, reviews the apps that are submitted to their store. And I want to share like a few of the guidelines because it's interesting. Like it's not like a intuitive that you think that your bot needs to be reviewed to go to the directory, but I think most of them make like a really good sense. Basically, the bot should bring some kind of value. Then it shouldn't be offensive. It shouldn't be rude. It shouldn't infringe some kind of like a trademark and copyright issues. You cannot use Microsoft logos if you don't have the permissions. Most of the things are common sense. This is interesting. The last like shouldn't be too long of verbose. I think this is for the descriptions. And a little bit more of that. So currently, if you're following the bot news, you know that now Facebook is activating, for example, through their messenger like a payments, and potentially they can disrupt the whole payment industry. So currently, this thing is not supported in the bot framework because you can imagine that there is like a different level of responsibility that the service should provide when you're like, transferring money for it. But again, my opinion that this should come. I don't have any information, but this is my feeling. Like I think the team is very competitive. When they see something happening in other platforms, it should happen here. But as you can see here, you can transfer links that are leading to secure payment services. So there is a way. if you want to make a bots that interact with the services and payments. So no, you can find a way. And yeah, there is like a special treatment about Skype again because it's a Microsoft entity. And these are like a few highlights about the major components. Again, Bot Builder, Developer Portal, and Bot Directory, the major parts of Bot Framework. So again, we have the open source SDKs that are available in GitHub, and you can check today how they work. Actually, it's very good learning experience to see how the Microsoft engineers and architects designed these SDKs. So you can steal some of the ideas for your own project. So very good reference. Also, the SDK delivers like a very nice predefined prompts and like visualizations, like a form flow and so on, that allow you to implement several patterns out of the box. And again, my feeling is with the time, these patterns will increase and the ease of use will be also improved. We have like online offline chat emulator, which is so important. This is basically your debugging tool. And the integration with cognitive services is great. So basically, if you have experience with cognitive services, in especially LUIS, that is specialized around language understanding, very good integration. Basically, the two teams that were building both services are working obviously together because the integration is very smooth and pleasant. The developer portal, again, if you have experience developing like a mobile applications and uploading these mobile applications to this developer portal, similar kind of experience. So you register, connect, publish, manage. So this is basically your management console. There is additional things about like a Skype channel, auto configuration, embedded web chat that we talk a little bit about that, and direct line API and so on. So Bot Directory is very interesting. So this is like basically you can think like a marketplace, like a equivalent of Google Play and App Store, where you see the list of all of these bots available. And actually, they're very interesting bots. Some of them are kind of like test experiment, but you can see I was surprised. I saw like there are a lot of travel bots, the bots that advise you like what kind of airplane ticket to take. Obviously, it's very convenient when you're in a rush, just interact with your bot. And maybe my favorite bot is the Azure Bot. So with Azure Bot, I haven't checked recently, but it's very convenient to manage part of your subscription through a bot. I can tell you, for example, we have subscriptions, enterprise subscriptions that integrate with our Active Directory. So actually, I cannot log into these subscriptions from if I'm not on a VPN connection or if I'm not using my corporate laptop, right? But you can find like a very nice workaround around that. Basically, logging on your Azure bot with your account, and after that, it's so easy to shut down and start virtual machines. So, for example, you're on the train, your typical train commute, and you say, "Oh, today I'll work on this virtual machine." You just give commands to the bot in the Azure bot and say, like, "Start virtual machine 1," or list all virtual machines, and it will give you the virtual machines. It will give you the state. And you can say like a start virtual machine 1, and it will start your virtual machine. You go to the office, it's already working. If you forget to shut it down, you go again to the train in the end of the day, say stop the virtual machine, it's stopping. And currently, there is no support for all of the services, but virtual machines are supported. I think also automation is supported. But I think they're working and expanding the list. So maybe one day we'll be able to do most of our operations with Azure just from the bot, which will be very, very exciting. Especially for people that need to support 24/7, and not every time you have your PC. Again, we talk a little bit about that. These are the SDKs, Node.js, .NET, and REST. I think the most interesting part is the dialogues and model conversations. So basically, we'll see, but there are like a certain dialogues that are coming with SDK that you can inherit in your application. So this will give you functionality like forms, like a basic forms and so on. The rich interactions are very interesting that create like a very, very interesting experience Today we see a little bit of that as well. Emulator. This is the developer portal. We talk a little bit about this, but the main function of this portal is like registering your bot, connecting to channel, testing, publishing, managing, measuring. So it's like your operation tool when you decide that your bot is ready from prime time and sharing it with other people. And the bot directory is this marketplace that we talk. Like you see the list of the different bots, and it's very cool because actually you can try them over there without need to installing them and integrating with any messenger. And these are the current support for the channels. So as you can see, we have Skype auto-configured, very nice integration. So definitely this should be your first target when you're ready with your bot. A few clicks of the button, it's inside Skype. Microsoft Teams, the new service that was released last year, very similar to Slack. Web chat is also pre-configured, direct line API. This is with integration with other not supported channels out of the box, Office 365 Mail, Facebook Messenger, very important integration, GroupMe, Kik, Slack, SMS with Twilio and Telegram. And I think this will grow with the time. Yeah, please. And again, Azure Bot Service. This is basically Azure Functions and Bot Framework in one. And the big advantage of this is that we actually have portal experience for development that is coming from Azure Functions. So you don't need Visual Studio. You just need your creative ideas and you're ready. Like your bots can be developed maybe in minutes or hours. So you can start playing with that. So today I'll focus mainly on the C# part of the bot service. But I advise you also, if you have time, go and find more about Node.js. I think it's very exciting, and you see, especially when we're talking about local debugging, there are a lot of tricks that you need to do when, not tricks, but additional steps that are a little bit unusual for debugging bots compared to the typical experience when you develop like ASP.NET APIs. So let's go quickly over the structure of the project, like what is included in the typical project for bot framework, Azure Bot Service, when you're talking about C#. So we have the typical solution file that is required for Visual Studio. And it's also used for a continuous integration. Then you can start seeing like some of the files that are required like for Azure Functions. This is commands JSON, and this basically also allow you to start the debug host in the Task Runner Explorer. We'll see, but basically this is the way that you can run locally your Azure Bot Service, because Azure Bot Service is actually behind the scenes Azure Functions, and Azure Functions is built to run as a serverless component in Azure, right? So there is a little need of a little bit porting to make it work okay on your local environment. Then we have the function .json. So this is the file that contains the functions bindings. So the functions bindings, this is the integration of the functions with the other services. So typical bindings for pure Azure function is between, let's say, storage and event hubs, between queue and some other service. So these are the connections of the functions with the function with other Azure services. We have host JSON, that is just a metadata file that contains global information and configuration. Project JSON. Here you have actually the NuGet references. So the idea is the same, like with our ASP.NET API is API projects, but just because it's functions, the format it's just a little bit different, and the referencing of this NuGet packages inside of the code of the function, it's a little bit different. And we have like a project.log JSON file that is automatically generated. It's not advised that you change that stuff, README file. So, okay, a lot of talking. Let's see how this looks in reality. Okay. So you just go to your Azure portal. Let me see which subscription is that. this one. Let me go to another one. So it's interesting that Azure Bot Service is actually under intelligent, how it was called? Intelligent. Among the intelligence service, like cognitive services and all that stuff. Intelligence plus analytics. So you can see here, you come here, you have like a bot service. It's a very interesting group. You can see we have Edge Insight, Hadoop machine learning, stream analytics, cognitive services, bot service, data lake analytics, data lake store, data factory. Very exciting group. This is, in my opinion, one of the most powerful family of services of Azure. So definitely check out some of this if you don't know them. But today, let's focus on bot service. So it's very easy to create a bot service. Basically, you just need to get a name for it. You need to select your subscription. You put your location. And this is it. So behind the scenes, Azure will create for you app service plan. It will create for you Azure function, and we'll see that this is just first step of the setup of the function. And after that, when we decide like what actually function, what actually Azure Bot Service we want to use, we need to do a little bit additional setup. So let's go here. You saw that it was super fast. Because again, this is running on the shared environment of Azure, and it's a lightweight application. So this is the experience. Like first, it asks you, okay, I need to create like some credentials for your application. Okay, let's do that. You click on this big blue button, and it will generate for you application ID as well as secret. So, okay, let's generate a password to continue. You need to copy this thing because after that it will disappear. You're going back to the framework, there's the password, and now we come here. So you can see, like we talk about this, like we have like a support for .NET and Node.js. We have like 5 powerful templates that are prepared for you. So we have basic, form, proactive, language understanding, and question and answer. So we look in details like each of them, but for now, let's just create the easiest one, which is the basic one. Just you click create bot. I think the UI, it's not so intuitive because you see this loader a little bit down the screen. So it depends on how big screen you have. You can think that the UI is frozen or something, but actually it's working fine. So now we are generating actually the second part of the bot provisioning. Now the actual code for this bot will be created. The files will be created, and in a second we'll see the UI. So far, do you have any questions? Okay. So it takes a little bit time, but
quick question.
Yep.
How many are using Azure right now? Okay. Awesome.
How many are using AWS? Nice, great, great. Google? Using everything, so cool. Last year, I think on the last event, we have like several Indian guys that they said that they're building solution that it will be hosted in all cloud providers. So let's say the compute will be on Azure, the storage will be on AWS, the queues will be on Google. So it's a little bit interesting idea. I wanted to ask them to present this thing, but maybe also you can give us like some high-level comparison between the cloud providers. And now you can see the UI is here. So it's very interesting. On the left side, you have the File Explorer. Here you see the code. Here are the logs. This is the chat, and we have like several tabs. So it looks a little bit crowded because my screen is kind of small, but usually you develop on the big screen, so it's not kind of issue. So there's like one limitation. You're not able to add any files here. So this is what you get, and you only can modify the contents of these files. So this one is not very good to modify in general, but basically your code is here and here. Fortunately, a little bit small screen. So we'll go a little bit in detail in this logic, but again, please remember you're not able to add files here. The only way to do that thing is you need to enable continuous integration. But then the trick is when you enable the continuous integration, you're not able to edit from this UI. So it's like one or another. So my opinion, if you want to hack something quick, maybe the Azure portal is great. But if you want to have a little bit more mature process with continuous integration, putting your source code in a Git and have like a more mature development process, definitely you need to configure continuous integration. So we talk a little bit about the structure. We have the solution, we have the commands file. This is for debugging and running in Visual Studio. This is the host information, no information actually. This is the echo dialog. So actually, this is the most of the logic of this simple chatbot. We'll review it after a bit. This is the function JSON. So you can see here, this is the typical setup for Azure function. So you have like HTTP trigger. So this means that this function will be triggered by HTTP event. The direction is inside, generic JSON, and so on and so on. Project JSON, here it tells you like what are the dependencies. These are basically the NuGet packages. So you see like we depend on Won't Build Azure version 3.1. The log file, they said is something that we shouldn't touch. So for now, let's not touch it. The run thing is actually the thing that is actually running your bot service. You can see the logic. Where is the logic? So we have initialization. We have like some kind of parsing. You have some post-deployment script. So all that thing is generated for you. But the best part is this thing that you can test it right away. And here is getting interesting because immediately we start to see some logs like a function completed success, like the bot greeted us, said like, welcome you. My name is you in this chat. And this bot is very simple. It just repeats what I'm saying. How are you today? And again, this is serverless event. So we generated event when we wrote a message. So, and we send this event as an HTTP event to the Azure function, and the Azure function was triggered, and then it parsed our message and it replied with just repeating the message. So super simple, super basic, but it's very easy to start with. In terms of channels, you can see that we already have like a Skype enabled. So let's add it to Skype. It's one click, add to contacts. Open Skype. So as you can see, where is Tambots? Okay. Crashed. But let's try again. Maybe I have it already in Skype. Oh no, it started to update. Okay. So we start now. Tambots. Okay. Hi. How are you? So as you can see, like it's super easy. Like just like a few clicks of buttons, you have your bot in Skype. So you can see like in reality how people can use it. It's not just like your only emulator. And then you can add very easily the other channels. In terms of settings, this is where you personalize how actually your bot will look like. You put some like icon, you add some descriptions. This is important information when you want to add to the bot directory. Here you can set up like a continuous integration. So you require several steps. First, you download all of the files. then you need to associate it with a Git repository, and then you can set up the integration source. So Azure Bot Service behind the scenes are Azure Functions, and Azure Functions are actually running on top of App Service. So you can have the typical configuration for App Service. So when you click this thing, you go to the application settings, which is like well-known app settings for App Service. The usual stuff here. You have .NET Framework. You have like your configuration here, and go back. And we have like advanced settings, which will be again very similar. Now you can see again the kind of app service plan. You see the whole thing behind the scenes. And if you return to the resource group that we created for this function, let me go back. Let's see what was generated actually for that. So as you can see, like several things were created. First, this is the app service plan. This is where we actually our Azure Functions and bot services actually hosted. This is our bot service, but which behind the scenes is actually the app service. This again, app service plan. We have like a storage account, and we have like a app insights account. Not completely sure why we have like a two app service plan here, but we can dig a little bit deeper and understand this thing later. But as you can see, like you just create like Azure Bot Service, and it created all these things integrated for you. So it's again super easy to start with that. Okay. Like a few pieces of this code, that we have in the basic bot service that is basically repeating the your input. So this is one of the important parts. Actually, the authentication is made very easy for you. So we have like a method that is decorated with attributes for authentication, and the bot framework actually handles for you the authentication. You can see here like one of the methods that is checking this authentication. So here basically it says like a bot authenticator value. You try to authenticate asynchronously, and after that you're checking the results and what is going on. If it's not successful, you basically generate unauthorized response. This is okay, but this is getting a little bit more interesting here. So now you can see here like activity is a major component of bot framework, and we see it here as well. So here basically we have this switch fragment, and it's checking like what kind of activity currently we have. Are we having a message? Do we have like a conversation update? And here is the place that you can actually add your code and process the user message, or like welcome the user, or do any of the other types of interaction, a response to interaction that your user has. So basically this is the framework when you inject your code, and it looks kind of like this. So in this case, we have like a conversation update based on the switch case that we have above. And we start a scope. So this is the lifetime scope for this activity. So we create a client, and we check, do we have any members in this conversation? So in this case, the bot is one member in this conversation, another one is you, right? And we start to construct the reply message. So we're extracting the members and iterating over this this array and say, okay, welcome, and we try to extract the name of the user. And you remember that the bot calls me you, because this bot is kind of simple. It doesn't allow me to input my name and give a little bit more information about myself, and just concatenate this string and outputs that. So it's kind of simple, but again, the structure is important. You start the lifetime scope, and then you go over the members, you greet all of them, and you complete. So another one is like when you have a message, like we want, so the user now send us a message. So this one was actually conversation update. This is more like a greeting, like when we're opening the conversation, like we wrote something to the bot. Bot knows that somebody is interacting with him, and his first job as a well-behaved bot is basically to greet us. But now we want to start interacting, right? So we detected the user sent us the message. So we want to respond to this message. So again, in this switch block, we detect that we have a message and we want to send a reply. But this time, what we're doing, we want to send the user to a predefined dialogue that we call echo dialogue. So this is actually the most important logic of our bot. So this is the echo dialogue. The echo dialogue inherits the iDialog interface, and what it's doing, the most important part is this thing in the first in the try block, and says like a context.wait message received async. So this is the method that will give us the interaction with the bot. We have like a little bit of logic around a counter that we constantly update with every single message, just like a additional data to see how the interaction with the bot is going on. But basically, the most important thing is we're waiting for interaction coming from the user, and when we have this interaction, we'll go and execute the message received async method. And this is the method that actually does part of the logic and says like, okay, what kind of message did you send me? Did you send me reset? If so, I want you to confirm that you're sure that you want to reset the counter. This is related to the counter that we started outside of the try block. And after confirmation, we'll actually reset the counter. Otherwise, we'll actually increase the counter. So let's see how actually this looks like. If we return back to our bot, takes a little bit of time. So let's generate several messages again. Hi. Welcome. How are you today? Okay, wait. Thank you. Okay. So yeah, we're here in the bot. We said some stuff like, hi, how are you today? It repeats. I say, okay, I want to reset. This is the keyword that my bot is listening for and wants to do something, reset. Are you sure to want to reset? So as you remember here in the from the slide, so this is something that is coming from the SDK. So this is from dialog.confirm. So we just need to call this method to know this UI is built out of the box for us. We don't need to call it. Yes, I want to reset. It will pick up this value. Okay, reset count. And the count is reset. So if I go with one high, you can see now I'll start from 1. Let me say like okay. So say reset. No. So the next message should be with counter 3. Did not reset, okay? Okay. Yeah, we continue with the same count. So basically understand yes, no, has this very basic like if logic to continue with that. Okay. And yeah, we saw that thing. Next one, let's create a form bot. So this is a little bit more interesting bot because it provides us just a little bit more functionality. So if you come here now in our resource group, and we want to keep using the same app service plan. So that's why from the inside the resource group, we'll click add, and we'll create a new bot service. So if you already use like functions, the idea is kind of different because you create like a function app and then you create inside of this function app like a different functions. I expected the flow to be similar, and for me it's kind of like a different because every time I need to create like a bot service. Maybe this will be fixed later, or maybe this is the intention to be that way. But you can see now, like when I create the bot service, so let's see like a term. Actually, it will use the same app service plan. It behaves a lot like a function app, which is the container for functions. But the experience is kind of different. At least with the functions, it's more like you're always inside of the function app, and you create functions inside it. Here we go out of the context, and you create like a bot service for every of the bots that you want to have. So, and also this UI is a little bit different, but again, let's say that because everything is in preview, this will be fixed later. So now let's go here and see. Now we have like another bot service created, and if we go here, you can see like our second service plan disappeared somewhere. Oh no, it's here, still it's here. So it's interesting like where this bot service was created. Was it on this service plan or on the other one? So for me, this logic is not completely clear, and I think when it becomes like a generally available, probably it will be a little bit more consistent. Okay, so let's go again back to the form. The form is a little bit more interesting because it allows us to have a little bit more guided experience. So this will finish the provisioning of the form bot. Okay, we need to do the same thing. The credentials, of course, will be completely different. Again, just see the speed, like how quickly we can start creating a new stuff. You have the templates already done. Everything is prepared. So it's super, super easy to start because the skeleton is already done for you. Okay, this will take a few minutes. And we have the form. The form is very interesting because it allows you, if you remember the slide that I showed you with the hair salon, allows you to have like this like a kind of guided experiences, and that you provide like there's like a very nice convention in the SDK that allows you to introduce these questions in the guided experience for the form. Let's see how quickly it will happen. Actually, I have a form, so maybe we don't need to wait. I have like another resource group that I created yesterday. So I have like a form bot there. Form, where is the form? This is the form bot. So again, the UI is very, very similar. We have the typical parts. Like we have the file explorer, we have the source code, we have the emulator. But the experience is a little bit different. So let's say, hi. Welcome. What's your name? Okay, what's my favorite car type? Okay. Favorite color, sorry about that. I like white. Okay, and it confirms my selection. So if you remember, like when both framework was announced, like there was like a very fancy, let's see. Okay, so see, this bot is not so intelligent. Like, so I need to say something else. Like, okay. Okay, so this is it. It understands okay, but doesn't understand perfect. But if you remember, like when the bot framework was announced during build, I think Sachana there was demonstrating that. I think it was very cool because they actually showed very interesting guided experience. And this experience here is like a very basic, but it's also very powerful. If you have like experience when somebody needs to fill a form, you can automate this thing with Azure Bot, like basically asking the question, what's your name, what's your address, what's your sex, all that stuff, right? But the demo that Satya showed was so cool because actually there were like two different bots that were talking to each other. So I think the context is like I wanted to go to a trip, and I also wanted to meet a friend, and I wanted to go to a restaurant, something like that. And at some point, like my bot and the bot of my friend were talking to each other, and they're trying to decide like what is the best option for both of us. So we wanted to go to a restaurant, and one of the bot was saying to another one, "Oh, I like seafood, and he's free on Saturday, so let's book a Saturday dinner in a seafood restaurant." So it's very powerful. I think this will be the super cool part. Like when you reach that level, the bots, you can give instructions like buy me a ticket to, let's say, like India, and this bot will interact with a travel agency bot, and they'll decide what is the best option for me, based on my schedule, and what is the cheapest option. So if we go that way, I think it will be very, very exciting. So again,
I just wanted to add one point. The example that he spoke about at Build, that also had voice recognition as part of it. So that is also now part of Azure services.
Yeah, perfect.
That's an important point because that was very critical to the demo.
Yes. And currently, I think only Skype supports this like voice. Yes. So again,
Skype was there.
Yeah. So it's very cool. Like even I think currently with Bot Framework, you can have like a call. Mm-hmm. The bot can call you and ask you a question. You can reply, finish the transaction, and basically finish the call, which is getting very cool. Especially imagine that you're not in condition to write something. You're in a hurry. You just want to talk to the bot. The bot can understand you with cognitive services or with the Skype functionality embedded one. So it's very, very powerful. And I think we see more of these use cases coming. So I want very quickly to go over some of the features form because I really like the convention that they have. So as you can see, this is going as a pattern. We have we need to filter the activity, and based on this activity, we decide what we do. So in this case, if you remember with the previous bot, we have something that was called echo dialogue. In this case, we have something that's called main dialogue. These are the dialogues that we create, customly create in our code. And most of the times we inherit from existing interfaces that are giving us part of the functionality coming out of the box. So here we again inherit from iDialog interface that takes as parameter basic form, which is the core of this form bot template. And this is the most interesting part. When we have like the message received async method that allow us to proceed the message, and also we have the form complete method. So basically, what's going on here, like we are like saying thank you, like a form returns some response and all that stuff. But actually, I think, yeah, this is the most interesting part. Like this is the basic form. This is the class that actually embeds your logic. And here, if you remember, like this bot was asking me some questions. So these questions, you just specify them as these attributes on top of your properties. And the convention is very cool. So this ampersand means that it will take the name of the property. So if you remember, let's go and it was asking me, hi, what is your name? And here we don't have name written in the text explicitly, but it will take as the name of the property. So if it's some other property, it will display dynamically over there, right? The next one is also very interesting. Here, like where is the mouse? Oh, mouse. So here, car options. So basically, this convention means that it will take the values of this enumeration, and you can see here the enumeration basically has these three values. And the third one is the most interesting. Like you combine both of these conventions. So it will take the name, color. It will tell you, please select your favorite color. Because of this sign, it will take the name of the property, and then also extract the values of this enumeration, color option. So it's very dynamic, and potentially you can even inject some of these things dynamically if you have these scenarios. And the rest of the things are kind of like a more like convention. You have the build form, and you have the build form dialog functionality. So I want to show you this thing. So you saw that the form bot wasn't very intelligent. It basically was relying on predefined inputs from me as a user. So when you ask me a question, you expect that I tell him yes or okay, something like that, right? So, but when I say perfect, it didn't react. It said, this is something new for me. This is another word that I don't understand. So this is all with LUIS or language understanding bots. So again, we will not spend too much time going deep in that, but you see the pattern again. You detect what is your activity, and then you route the bot to a predefined dialog. In this case, yeah.
Sorry, can I interrupt?
Yeah, of course.
Before you explain Lewis, I just wanted to highlight what he showed earlier. So dialogue is a natural flow of talking to the bot. And when you group these dialogues together, you get into conversations. So that's the reason why you see conversation over there. So earlier when he had dialogues everywhere, asking questions, they can actually have a natural flow within a conversation context. So you can go behind, it's like talking.
Yeah.
So when you're asked a question and you need to go back, you go back to a dialogue, but all of that remains in a conversation context.
Yep.
So I just thought I'll highlight conversation because it's important. When you're switching context, you can have multiple conversations and dialogues within the conversations.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that note. I think this explains. And where do you put activity in this structure? You have like a conversation dialogue.
Yeah.
What is the activity? Where activity states in this?
So activity is within a dialogue.
So we have conversation, dialogue, activity.
Yes, activity.
Okay, very good. And this is the LUIS dialog. This is just like a empty template, like a placeholder. But you can see here, if you have, if you work with LUIS, basically LUIS provides like a very easy, intuitive UI that you define intents. Intents are how you define intents. Intents are kind of patterns that you match against some inputs, right?
Right.
And the most important part is like you define intents, but the most important part is that you feed a lot of data for particular intent. So you can think as an intent as a kind of a question, so for or like an answer, and you need to give like a lot of similar inputs for the same question. So the LUIS learns from this input. So for example, I don't have good example, but basically you provide like many similar inputs. So LUIS learns from that, and after that is ready next time when I for example, the bot asks me and I reply with a perfect, it won't be confused and understand that in this context this is similar to okay. So it will reply to the same response that is planned for okay.
Yeah, I would like to add to that. So an easier way to understand intent. So how many of you know about LUIS? Awesome. So what you can do is within the LUIS framework, you can have it learn from the data that you give it. Like, for example, within LUIS, you can say, my name is Parag. And then you can give it multiple examples and then highlight what was the name part and what was the question part. The more data you give in terms of the intent, the intelligent the engine becomes. So next time when a text input comes in, it's like regular expressions. So when text input comes in, the engine compares the intent to the data and gives it the best match.
Yeah.
And that best match enables you to select the right action or the activity for it. So intent kind of becomes, again, like the building block for LUIS. The more intents, the cleverer it is.
Yep. We definitely need to make like one more talk for cognitive services for LUIS. I think it's a very deep topic. Like last year we have a kind of talk, but we really grabs the surface of that. I think it's very deep, and I think probably the service is already changing, enabling new capabilities. But again, part of the work is here. Like when you create also like the language understanding bot, you see that even the wizard in the bot service takes you and helps you to create the LUIS service as part of Azure, because this bot requires LUIS. Basically, the smartness of this bot is coming from another service, and this bot is just the way to access the knowledge that is created in LUIS. And again, the integration is based on these conventions. You define this intent in LUIS, you feed the data, LUIS learns, and after that is smart when you provide the input to match to the right intent. Okay, I want to show you one bot that was very interesting for me, proactive bot. So it has an interesting name. So let's see, will you like it as well? So proactive bot. By the way, all these bots that I'm demonstrating today, these are all like coming from the template. So you can try them today. You can go and check them. You can play with them. I wanted to start with like showing like something that is very accessible, that it's not modified. So you can see that it's very easy. So you can start immediately, actually. So let's start and see. We say hi to the proactive bot. And he greets me.
You need to switch again. I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay. You start to imagine, right? Okay. It's good for the imagination.
Yeah.
So let's say again, hi. So you said hi, message added to the queue. This is coming back from the trigger hi. This is coming back for the trigger hi. Okay. So I think I said too many times hi, or there was some like issue with the synchronization here. But basically what is happening is interesting, right? Like first I send a message hi to the bot. So it said like you said hi. This was very much similar to the first bot that we created, the Echo bot. But after that we have a second action. So this is adding this message to the queue, to a queue, and then this bot extract the message from the queue. So now this is not super exciting example, but it comes to show you like an interesting model, interesting pattern that you can have like a little bit more complicated workflows, and you have like an intermediate service that serves as a kind of queue between your bot and potentially something else. So here on this slide, it's actually explained. So just we have like a nine steps. So let's start with the first one. Like, where's the mouse? So first, I, as a user, post a message to the bot framework servers, right? Then we have like a message from the user going to my bot. Then we're adding this message to the queue. Then we have a function that is extracting the message from the queue, and it's sending it to the bot framework servers, right? Then this triggers the message to my bot. The bot actually replies to me, and I get the reply. So it's kind of complicated, but you can imagine that potentially this thing can be something more interesting. Let's say like some ordering batch or some ordering API that you're sending requests, and after that it will reply to you when it's ready. For example, you order like let's say like a book from some retailer, and after that, when the whole process is complete, it will give you kind of like a confirmation in an asynchronous way. So actually, the idea is very powerful, and you can come up with very interesting applications. And this template again is completely prepared for you. So when you create this bot, it will create for you the queue, the storage account, the queue, the other function. So everything will be set up. As you can see here, we create the storage account is created for you, the bot service, the function app, specific function app that will only deal with the extracting of the message from the queue, right? This is we have like the bot service itself is a function app, but we're creating now dedicated function app that will just deal with the queue and bypass the message from the queue to the bot framework. And Azure Functions app, yeah? And everything is pre-configured for you. So let's see how this looks like. Again, we have this typical message received async method that is actually extracting the message that I sent to the bot service and is pushing it to a queue. So nothing untypical here. And after that, we are waiting for confirmation that everything is complete. Then we're going to the usual workflow. Basically, we're listening for activity. And this time, the activity type is a trigger. And we want to extract the message. Extract the message and give reply to the user. Okay. And this is actually how the function is set up. You can see here we are defining the bindings. This is the bindings that you're talking that are typical for function apps. You say like my function app is listening for events on the queue. So when there is a new message on the queue, this function will be activated. And also, so this is the this is the input for this function, right? And then this is the output. When we have like a message in the queue, we'll get it inside the function will process it, and after that we'll broadcast it and push it to my bot. So this is the typical way that functions work. As I said, you see there is very nice application with event hubs, with other services in Azure. So definitely look in functions, very, very powerful and easy to use. And this is the function code. So you can see this nano services, very, very, very small. You just have the mod message. You have a very, very simple code around that. And the last bot that I want to talk a little bit about it, we will not go so deep around that, but it's built on a service that is called a Q&A Maker AI. I think this is Microsoft service that allows you to very easily to create FAQ bots. Basically, you go in this service and you configure questions and answers inside, and it make it very easy to have this question FAQ type of experiences with your bots. So if you imagine now, it's very typical scenario. Most of our websites have FAQ sections, but it's kind of boring that you need to scroll and list between 100 or 20 FAQ questions. It's so much better if you have a natural conversation with a bot and say, okay, I have this problem, can you help me? And with the help of this service, it will match your questions to predefined question inside of the dataset and will give you the response. Kind of similar to Louis. Do you know, is there a Louis behind the scenes for that, or this is different?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
It's still unstable. I mean, it's not very stable right now.
Yeah, it's very new.
Yeah, very new.
But if you have experience, for example, with IBM Watson, they also have a FAQ type of bot service that is also integrated. So I think this is the same idea. Just the experience is more configured. It's more like a solution. It's not just component. And how it looks, again, the same workflow. You're detecting the activity. In this time, it's a message, and you're redirecting to basic Q&A maker dialog. And this Q&A maker dialog just inherits from a base class. Okay. The last topic that I want to touch today is continuous integration. We talk about if you want to have a more mature development process, you definitely need to tap into this topic. So you can integrate with Visual Studio Team Services, which is probably the easiest way, but you can go to GitHub or other providers that are here in the picture. So what you need to do in order to set up your environment, you need to install several components on your PC or virtual machine in order to enable that thing. Because, again, don't forget, this is like a function, Azure Functions behind the scenes. It requires a little bit setup. It's not just Visual Studio. It requires a little bit more setup. But basically, you need to download your service code. You need to have the framework emulator. You need to have a Azure Function CLI. So this requires a Node.js and NPM on your system. You need a .NET CLI. So any version of Visual Studio will work. Visual Studio 2015. And you need also the command task run of Visual Studio extension. So all these things are open source and nothing is paid, so it's very easy. There's some special considerations with the Visual Studio 2017 release candidate that you need to follow, but for now we skip that. So let me show you how it looks. Here I have one virtual machine. So this is the source code of one of yes, perfect. 1 second. I should have a bot that tells me your screen is not visible, or maybe even do it for me. No. Okay, but yeah, this is like a very, this is the source code of the basic bot that we have. So you can see like it's very simple. This is the echo dialog that just repeats. This is the run method that constantly is running the code. Okay. So let's run it. Continue debugging. Okay, and here I have emulator. So basically here you need in the emulator, you can see something is happening here, like we have some output. When you start the emulator is part of the SDK, so you just need to install it. When you start this bot, it will tell you on what port is listening. When you debug locally, you don't need to fill these details like app ID or password. It's not required. And here, let's see, is it already listening? And basically, you're debugging like a normal application here. But again, the important part, you need to install the Azure CLI. You need to install this extension for Visual Studio. When you have all these 3-4 components, it will work normally. It will be like your usual application, usual .NET application. So it reply you set hi, right? So let's do some change here, modification. So I'm adding this like a okay. Save that. So let's push these changes. Currently, this is integrated with Visual Studio Team Services. Yeah, you can see I have like a small project here that is integrated with one of my Visual Studios. Let's push this change. Staged, I think. What happened? Okay. Let's push this thing. Yeah, we're pushing to Visual Studio Team Services, and let's see what is going in Azure at the same time. Okay, so this is my test bot. Let's go to the run project. If you remember what I did, I just changed this like exclamation marks to something else. So here I haven't found like how to refresh automatically. That's why I'm refreshing the whole window. Should pick the changes from Visual Studio Team Services. But basically, the whole configuration is super simple. It will take like 5 minutes to enable the continuous integration. So you can see here, like this is a change to question marks. And if you execute this thing, hi, it should show me these question marks. Okay, this works. And if you want to edit the continuous integration, you just come here and you press this button. And basically, you see I integrated that thing with VSTS, and currently it's building because we pushed the changes, and it shows me like the previous build. So it works very well with VSTS. I think it will work very well with GitHub. I haven't tried the other ones, but I think it will work very nice because in the end, this is app service, and app service works very well with this source repositories. So yeah, but the interesting part is here, right? Let's go to the source code. Here. I just want to show you that actually you're not able to edit anymore from here. So the portal becomes just like a visualization tool instead of editing tool. It's interesting what will happen when it becomes like a generally available, because I would say that it should be like a two-way changes. Like even if you want to modify from here, so I'm trying to modify some stuff, it doesn't work. But in my opinion, like when it's generally available, I should be able to make changes from here as well, not only from Visual Studio. So we'll see what will be when we reach that stage. So yeah, basically this is the workflow like for the local debugging. In order to enable the whole thing, you need to run like the .NET CLI that will restore the packages that are defined in the package JSON. So you have all the NuGet references locally. Then you can run the debug host.cmd to load and run your bot. You copy the endpoint and put it in the emulator. You need to append API messages by convention, and then you don't need to fill the connection data. Press connect, and you're able to actually start debugging. And if you want to put a breakpoint, you're stopping the debug host CMD script. You're loading the solution for your project. You click the task Run and Explore at the bottom, and you put a breakpoint, and this is it. You just attach to the right process, and you start debugging. So in my case, I did it already. That's why it was so quick, but basically very, very easy. So this is it for today. Really, as you can see, I just show you. So I just show you like the things that are available right out of the box. So it's very easy, very intuitive. There is no complicated things. I advise you like go and take your time. I think the costs are not so high, just like a one-app service plan, and they charge you just per execution of the Azure functions, which is very, very cheap. So it's perfect for testing, for debugging, very, very easy. And I think it's really easy. As you saw, basically a few clicks of the button, and you have your bot integrating with the bot service. But I wanted to show you also. Okay. Microsoft Directory. Oh yeah, yeah. This is. I need to work on this element. Maybe it shows that you're paying attention, which is nice. Okay, so the bot directory is very cool, right? You see all the bots, as you can see here, like a Skyscanner, the word travel search engine, HipMonk, superpower travel assistant, Jesse, how many? I'm not sure what's that, but your personal healthcare companion, like interesting stuff. Azure Bot, the thing that I was talking about, Solitaire, some of the Microsoft services on your face, and so that. So, for example, let's start with that. The cool part here is that very easily you can add it. Where is the testing here? Before that, I was able to test. There was like a embedded. Okay, let's add it to Skype. It's a big problem. Move on Skype. Start. Hi. So she has some problems, as you can see. Yeah. So see, like she has some problems already. Start to get interesting. She's going to some kind of interview and some kind of issue. So it's kind of a real conversation, right? And I think the other one are a little bit more practical. If you have like a little bit more specific needs around your traveling, around other stuff, but definitely there are not so many bots. So yet, so you can see, maybe there are more, but but definitely, I think if you come with a good idea, you have a good API, good logic, maybe your bot can come here and you potentially one of the highlighted bots. So yeah, this is just, again, as I said, my intention is to be just the first talk on bots, cognitive services, and all the ecosystem around that. I think Microsoft committed on build that to be on the forefront of bot development. So I expect that they'll deliver a lot of innovation around that this year in the coming years. So definitely try, please, the bot service and make it super easy to start. Please also, if you develop interesting bots, share them, deploy them to the bot directory, and come also and demonstrate them with us. And hopefully we'll have like a very, very exciting time reviewing this with you. So thank you very much for your attention. And if you have any questions, let's have a discussion about that.
Now it's only Japanese supported or other languages?
I think, I'm not sure, but Japanese support is there.
Luis, I can tell you for Luis, I'm sure like Luis for a long time didn't have support for Japanese, but I think in the end of last year, there was added support for Japanese. So I think most of the cases, if you want to make like a really natural kind of interaction, Luis is your default choice, because it's kind of difficult to predict what people will say. So on a Luis level, you have Japanese support. So I think this should solve your
If you
problem.
have any specific question, you can forward it to me, and I'll check with my teammates
Yeah.
who are specializing in bots.
Okay, thanks.
But I think there is support for Japanese here.
But for the language recognition, I think Japanese is not.
Language recognition.
I mean, because with the chatbot we can
Speech?
Yes, yeah.
I think I saw a demo in Japanese, but I can check.
Because last time the can the presentation by Ken, the demo that needs cognitive API stuff.
Yeah.
He said that the speech recognition
He used
doesn't.
Cortana for that, right?
Hmm?
He used Cortana. Go through the
Yeah.
Do you remember which API he used? No? Yeah,
Probably cognitive services.
cognitive service, but which one? Voice recognition. Where is that?
Can you please drop me an email? I'll check.
Okay, sure. Thanks.
Voice recognition. Yeah, the question.
Just wondering if there's going to be wider availability for voice input for bots outside of Skype.
I think so. Yeah, it should be, but I don't know. I don't know the roadmap. Do you know?
Otherwise, I'd have to type it into voice to text.
Yeah, this is not very elegant solution.
Will there be support for line?
I think so. I don't. Yeah.
Is there any like roadmap for that?
Good question. Maybe you can help us with that. But definitely, I know that they're working with a lot of these messengers, and obviously, Line is the leader in Japan,
Right.
so it makes perfect sense. Line. I even remember that Line was even on the keynote of Satya Nadella on Build, right? Yeah, Line support. I think they should be definitely. They're one of the biggest players in the market, so it's logical.
It would make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
They're a very, very big deal to have.
Yeah, I can tell you. I think they're working with a lot of the biggest one. So it's in my opinion, it's just a matter of time. They're evaluating what is the need. So yes, we should come. But maybe you can after that update us.
Yeah.
So who is going to try Azure Bot Service? So it's very easy. You can try it even now. So easy.
PowerPoint, is it available?
Oh yeah, I need to. Yeah. I'll update it in the slide share and I'll link it in after that. But actually, most of the content from the for this presentation actually came from Azure Bot Service
It's to make it
documentation.
all together in one place there.
Yeah. Yes. So I can say this is like a very good resource. So definitely come here and check. Like the documentation is not difficult. It's written in very plain and understandable language. It's actually inside of the bot framework documentation, and this is the Azure Bot Service part. So if you're starting with a bot framework, probably this would be the first place that you can check. Also, there are like new Pluralsight bot framework. There's like a course on Pluralsight that I recommend. It's relatively new. I think it's from this January. Also, Azure Functions. Functions. Fundamentals. So this is very short. This is just like a 2 hours, and this one is like 3 hours, and definitely Channel 9.
Online is the best resource.
Yeah, Channel 9 has a lot of cool stuff. Like especially not so much stuff about the bot service because it's kind of new, but actually, again, if you look for a bot framework, or if you look for like Azure Functions, you find a lot of stuff. So definitely check the bot framework, but also be careful because bot framework is evolving very quickly. So don't watch some of the old videos because you can end up with using like referencing some of the old APIs. So you can see here what's new in the documentation. So there is like a constant update what's going on. And somewhere here there was like a very, very clear deadline where certain APIs for the bot framework will be supported and when they will be discontinued. So again, be careful if you find some materials about bot framework, because some of the APIs are kind of fault. And the support, I think, of one of the first versions ended yesterday. And the support for I think the second major version will end somewhere in the summer. So better work against the latest version 3. But definitely very, very lightweight documentation that will be easy to understand and find a lot of information. So definitely please check this website. Do you know also like when they'll go out of preview? No, not clear yet. But this is interesting. Like yesterday I was checking this FAQs. So there is a lot of information here. The one that impressed me is that actually who created bot framework? Who was that? Do I have research? Yeah, who are the people behind the bot framework? Like, and this says like a bot framework is collaborative effort across many teams, including Microsoft Technology and Research, Microsoft Applications and Service Group, and Microsoft Developer Experience Team. So it's very, very interesting. That's why you can see like the very smooth and nice integration between Luis and bot framework, because actually it's not developed in silo. It's more like a collaborative kind of effort. And this goes even more interesting on a bot service level, because bot service, where is that? Because then to this mix of Microsoft Research, like application services team, functions team, you add the Azure core team. So it's really, really like 5 or 6 teams working on the same piece of software, open sourcing big part of it, and make it very easy to integrate with Azure. So definitely very exciting technology. And I don't know like what will happen, but probably some of the APIs that we develop today probably will evolve naturally as a bots in one or another way. So definitely don't miss this chance, and please try it and come up with your bots and demo them here. Okay. Yay. Oh, we have a question.
Yep.
Do you know Noki? Noki is you're architect in Microsoft?
I work as a technical evangelist.
Technical
for Azure
evangelist, yes.
In Japan.
Yeah, so we've been working with Noki for a long time. But basically, we had several questions He's from Microsoft, so we can ask. Can you repeat your question? If he knows, it will be great.
It's about the bot service. Does it recognize Japanese language or it's only English at the moment?
Yes. It supports functionality including Java. So
Even
there are
if-
several customers who are providing production service on framework.
Okay.
So let's try it.
Because I tried the Slack.
It is that's a REST API, so
Oh, okay, that's good. Because the Slack bot is quite dumb because if you don't put a space between the Japanese word, it doesn't recognize because in English we use the space.
So, yeah, please forget that this is still preview, right?
Yeah.
You can see even from the UI, it's not perfect, but it's functional. So I think there will be a lot of improvements. Do you know something about the roadmap? Like when do you expect to be GA or this is, if you can share, of course,
roadmap of
bot service?
Azure Bot Service. As you know, currently we are providing Azure Bot Service preview.
Mhm.
So basically, it's you can create a simple bot implementation using C# but Node.js, and it runs on Azure Functions, our serverless platform. So as far as I know, the current preview is still not stable, and so we're improving the quality of services, and maybe I don't know the exact schedule, but maybe in several months.
In my opinion, it's in preview. Of course, maybe there is like still like the Azure service is maturing itself, but Azure, functions is GA, right? Functions is GA, so the infrastructure is GA. I think both framework is in preview. So probably when both framework becomes like a GA, Azure Bot Service will follow very quickly, and it will become available. We had also interesting question about line.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's
Okay.
a good question.
It's a good question. So the most relevant question for Japan.
Yeah. Most customers ask the same question, and to be honest, currently, of course, Japan team requests the right support to the bot framework engineering team, but currently it's not supported.
Not yet.
Yeah.
But
So
are you aware that there is like a kind of some work on that, or it's not clear?
I have a confidential information, but
Okay.
Cannot share that.
yeah.
Please
Sorry.
give our feedback that we want line
of
support.
course, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Do we have any other questions for us or Nelki?
So the other day I got to play with Azure Functions, and the file type is different, and I was having some issues with like IntelliSense not working very well. Is there?
Yes, you're writing C# code, right? Yeah, the extension is CSX. Yeah, it's a little bit different kind of C#.
So is the support for that going to be improving, or?
I don't know our roadmap, so I check.
Is it easier to write functions in Node.js currently?
Yeah, Node.js is same on function, so much easier.
Yeah, this is the strange like a feeling that I have that it's maybe easier to write functions in Node.js. Because again, like I forgot his name, but one of the major main like program managers, he's like
Adrian Hall.
no Andrew Hall, like
He did,
maybe Andrew Hall, like
he did like a big thing on mobile apps. Mobile app service.
yes, yeah. Where's this guy? Yeah, this guy. Chris Anderson. Yeah, Chris Anderson. So he was like, I remember talking with him like when he was on a mobile services team, and he was pitching the Node.js to use the Node.js mostly, and he continues to push Node.js, I think, which is great. And I think there's specific scenarios that maybe Node.js works a little bit better for now than .NET framework, but hopefully this will be balanced. Sounds good. Do we have any other questions? Sounds good. Okay, thank you very much for attending today. Like my usual request, please feel free to nominate yourself to be a presenter. Like I'm very keen actually to hear more about the projects that you're working on or your hobby projects, if it's not allowed to share your company projects. And again, we are very flexible. The only topic should be Azure, but you know, Azure is so broad, so we can easily talk about open source, about infrastructure, about design, about architecture. So it's not so like a scary to sit here. Like everybody is very friendly. The questions are very nice. So please come and share. I'm sure that everybody has like 5 or 6 topics that will be very interesting for all of us. So just contact me, and I really be happy to see you here next time and learn more about your projects. Thank you very much. And I want to ask you, can you write your names if you didn't write your names, because this is our KPI. If you don't have a lot of people, it's kind of difficult. So, everything is KPI. Okay.
So it's fine. Thank you.
Stop sharing.